Hi everybody, welcome to my channel Frugalisama. My name's Sam and this is where I talk about all things sewing. And today I've got a review of the new named clothing patterns book, Building the Pattern. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed so far. If this is the sort of thing that you like, please consider subscribing. Bring out videos, usually on a Sunday, although this is a little bit late, with pattern reviews and makes and that sort of thing. I have a series called 100 Days of Sewing where I talk about frugal sewing, sewing on a budget, and bring you hints and tips. I have a series of videos called Frugal Fridays, and currently I'm reviewing the Great British Sewing Bee and finding free patterns that fit in with the theme of the sewing bee. And midweek I usually bring a tutorial or some tips and tricks videos. So on with today's video. So Named have just brought out this new Building the Pattern book, and I thought I'd give it a quick review and tell you my thoughts. I bought this book, I've not had it given, so this is an honest review of what I think. I've had it just a couple of days now, so I've had a chance to look through it and trace off a pattern. Not actually made anything from it as yet, so it's just my first thoughts, and I thought I'd go into some depth of what it contains and let you know some thoughts and give you some feedback on it. So first things first, this isn't a how to sew book, it is a pattern book that is focusing on fit, and it is focusing on adapting patterns. So there are 6 garment patterns within it, and they're calling them building blocks, which you can adapt and make more from them. I'll just give you a bit of a brief overview now and go into each building block into a little bit more depth later on, and then I will look at one in particular, talk you through it and what to expect from the pattern book. So the brief overview is that it's based for a UK size 6 to 22, which works out as a US size 2 to 18, European 34 to 50. That is equivalent to a 30-inch to a 45-inch bust, goes up to a 39-inch waist and a 59-inch hip, and it's drafted for someone who's 5'8". So out of the 6 building blocks, they are saying that you can actually sew, there are patterns there for up to 20 garments, but technically there's enough patterns there to make up to 160 garments by mixing and matching the patterns. So for £18 you could get theoretically up to 160 patterns out of this. I think realistically that's not going to happen. But in theory you can do that. Like I said earlier, it's not a how to sew book, and it is more of a book focused on fit. There are some sewing techniques in it, but it's only about 8 pages. The fit pages for the first 40 pages. So some of the fitting instructions within it include small and large or full bust adjustments, narrow chest adjustments, forward and backward shoulders adjustments, moving darts up and down, and changing the height, so if you're a little bit shorter than 5'8" or taller, and waist and hips adjustments, full and flat butt adjustments. So that's an example of what the full butt adjustment techniques are. So within it you've got what to look for and what the solution is, assessing the toile or the muslin, and then what the solution is, graphics to support that as well. And then you've got your broad and narrow shoulder adjustments and sloping shoulder as well, and then what to do, how to true the pattern. So there are only 40 pages dedicated to this, so it's not a dedicated fit book. There are other books out there that will probably go into much more depth, but I would say it does go into more depth than your normal pattern book. It just sort of goes into what to look for and what to assess, and then within each pattern block there's extra advice in that as well. So for each pattern or building block it gives you basic options and then custom tips as well, and then it goes into custom fitting tips as well. So before we go into all the patterns, you've got a double page there that just gives you the line drawings of each of the patterns and all the variants that you've got there. And then at the top you've got the main variations, any variable elements that you could use, different pockets or sleeves perhaps, any optional add-ons, and then anything that you can do to customise it. So for example, on the trousers, the Varma trousers, you've got the trousers, you've got the shorts, you've got the jumpsuit, and then they're saying as a customisation you can make the jumpsuit into a play suit with short legs. So on top of the 6 building block patterns then there is an extra one which is just like a little bag pattern. And all of the patterns are dedicated to one sheet. So you get 6 sheets of paper like this one, and at the bottom it'll tell you what it is, and you've only got that pattern on this sheet of paper. So front and back, all you've got is the luava on that pattern piece there, and they do overlap, and obviously you've got all your sizes on there, so you will need to trace it because you've got it printed on both sides, so you can't cut it out. But they do have the option to download the patterns as well by just putting the ISBN in, but obviously you're not going to have the instructions for that. So I really liked the idea that you're not having to flick between patterns and try and find it. I've had that in the past, and it's really, really confusing. So that's a plus point for that. The negative point on this is that these lines, they're all the same colour for each size. It's all the same colour, and there's nothing on this pattern piece to tell you what size each line represents. You've got to flick to the back of the book to find that information, which isn't difficult. Once you know it's there, it's there. So that's one of the downsides of that. The patterns are on somewhere between a tracing paper and your standard copy paper thickness. It's just a nice thickness. And like I say, you can download the pattern. So each pattern piece is named and labelled at the bottom with what it's got on, and each pattern piece reflects each block. So it's printed on both sides, and it is overprinted, but it's quite clear what's what. So everything to do with the sarja has got a number 1 on it, and anything with a 0 like that is a common piece, so it might be used with the sarja and it might be used with one of the other patterns. And then if you flip it over, you can see it's all still relating to the same pattern. And you can also see here that you've got some joining pieces, so that will be joined to this piece here. So there is some tracing to be done. So what I will do is talk through each building block, what the variations are and how much ease there is in it and what have you. And whilst I'm talking, I'm going to insert the line drawings from online so that you can see what I'm talking about and make it a little bit easier to visualise. So the idea of this book really is to build your skills throughout. You start with something a little bit simple and then you're building on your skills throughout. So the first pattern, the sarja, that's quite loose fitting, so although it's a fitting book, you've got about 2 inches of ease in this one. And you've got 4 patterns. You've got an A-line top, a midi dress, you've got a faux wrap dress and a faux wrap skirt, and then you've got the option of elasticated waist. The straps on the top are adjustable. You've got adjustable spaghetti straps, nice curved neckline, and then you've got the asymmetrical option with the wrap as well. All these patterns for the sarja have been made in an atelier brunette, so you're wanting something that's quite drapey. They're drapey viscoses, lightweight fabrics really. And the customisation tip on this one is to change the elastic for a corded waist. So the next pattern in the book is the elwaza, and that's the only knit garment within the book. And that's got this really unusual curved seam just above the bust. Quite a relaxed fit with a drop shoulder. And this again has got 4 options. You've got a tunic, a sweater, and you've got a circle skirt dress and then a mermaid dress. And you've got the option of doing it either a turtleneck or just a banded neckline. And then you've got different sleeve options as well. So you've got puff sleeve, or you've just got a t-shirt length sleeve, or you've got long sleeves, just straight long sleeves. You've got an option to put pockets in the dress as well for this one. So there is a lot of ease in this, 5 inches at the bust. And they're recommending a medium weight jersey for that one. So next up you've got luava, and there's 3 options for this one. You've got blouse, tunic or dress. This is another loose fitting garment where you've got 11 inches of ease at the bust. Some unusual details in this, in that you've got a folded collar option. The shirt's got a curved hem, and it's got the option for long sleeves with little snaps on it. The tunic has got these slits at the side where you can either put buttons or snaps on at the side. Then you've just got different pocket options on there as well. So this is another one with drop shoulders. It's got a yoke at the back and a couple of sleeve options as well. And in the dress version you can put like an elastic insert at the back to draw it in at the waist. The halia is the next one, and this is the most close fitting garment out of them all. So you've got 3 options on this one, or 3 main options on this: a pencil skirt dress, a top with a peplum, and a mermaid skirt gown, which has got front slits and then an invisible zip. So the neckline, you can change the neckline on this one, so you can go for boat neck or an O neckline. Never heard of that one before. And you can do this with or without sleeves, and you've got a fluted sleeve option as well. So this is designed for light to medium weight fabric, and you can have a little bit of stretch in this if you want. Some of them you need a little bit of drape as well. Then the next ones are the varma, and these are the trousers, and you've got the trousers, the shorts and the jumpsuit option. Those are your main options. You've got these unusual pocket details on this, the undulating pocket details on this. Quite a high-waisted one, and it's got the tie waistband, which is reminiscent of the U2 skirt in the Breaking the Pattern book. Again, it's designed for medium weight wovens, and you've got a double pocket option on the jumpsuit. The jumpsuit's made without any darts, so it's a bit more relaxed, and you can put a belt on that, belt loops, or you can just wear it loose. Last in the garments is the cuirass, and that's a jacket option. So you've got a bomber jacket or a blazer style jacket. So two extremes of styles there. Again, you've got the undulating pockets, which reflect the ones in the trousers. The bomber jacket's a little bit different to any that I've seen before. You've got a corded fastening option at the bottom. Both have got a yoke seam, and they've got this unusual yoke seam at the front as well, where you can add pockets. And then last but not least is the little bag pattern, which is a giallo, and that's just a little small bag. You can add that to belt loops as part of the outfit, or you can make it as a separate bag as well. So that's a brief overview of the patterns and what they've got to offer you, and I thought I'd just look more in depth at one of the patterns and see how it's all set out, so you can have a quick look at that as well. I'm going to look at the luava, which is a shirt, dress and shirt. To get the pictures there, quick brief overview of what's available there, and then you turn the page and it tells you what materials you need, any customization tips, fabric requirements, and any extras like interfacing and what have you. So that's how it's set out there. This side is dedicated to how much fabric you will require for each section, and then this side is your finished garment measurements. So the garment measurements are all on at the beginning of the book. They're all on page 18, which is consistent throughout the book. That's your garment measurements. So what I suggest you do is take your measurements, find out which one you're closest to, and then what I've done is just write that on a post-it note there, and then I'll stick that on whatever pattern I'm using. So I'm not having to go backwards and forward to see that I'm size 5 throughout. I will remember that eventually, but put that book away and I'll have forgotten that. So yeah, each pattern you're only given your finished garment measurements, and also you're not told what your seam allowance is at the beginning of each pattern, and it's not on the patterns either. That's sort of buried within the book at page 53 or something. I could do with having that seam allowance on it at the beginning of each pattern, because again, if you put that book away and come back to it, is it 1 centimetre, is it 1.5 centimetres? You soon forget these things. So after that then you've got a cutting guide, because obviously each pattern block has got different variations, so you're given that cutting guide there and it tells you what you need for each pattern. It is quite easy to follow, but I would imagine that if you're fairly new to sewing, that would be a little bit mind-boggling. You know, it's all there. But so for example, I've cut out the tunic. I just follow what I need for the tunic here. And it is quite straightforward. And then you go on to your layouts. So that's your pattern layouts for different widths of fabric. The next page is then any special instructions for any pattern alterations, which I think is really useful. So they're specific to that particular garment. You're most likely in this one to do a straight or sloped shoulder adjustment, and to knitting up and true the collar after you've made that adjustment. And then it goes straight onto your sewing instructions. So if you've sewn with a pattern book before, you will, and it's got different variations, you'll know that it will skip between each variation. They'll start with what the instructions are for everything, and then it'll break off to, if you're sewing the dress you do this, if you're sewing the tunic you do this, if you're sewing the shirt you do that. So general instructions there, and then it breaks off for the dress and the tunic there. Again, it is quite straightforward to follow, but if you've never done it before, then it might be a little bit confusing. And then what you've got there is some photographic instructions, and you've also got line drawings within it as well for instructions. It's mostly line drawings but supported a little bit with photographic instructions. That is how that particular pattern's set up. I'm not going to go through all of them because I think it will be boring, but I thought it'd be useful for you to see how the book's set out, what to expect from it, and what I think of it. So I really like the aesthetic of this book. I made quite a lot of patterns from the Breaking the Pattern book. I'm wearing the Ruska right now. That's a Selena dress. I made the Numi bag, the Sade or Sade blouse. I made the Saraste top and the Paolo jeans twice from the Breaking the Pattern book. So I feel like I got quite a lot out of that particular pattern book, and I do find that name patterns do fit me quite well. So on to the review now, and the pros of this pattern book is that for £18, 20 odd patterns, up to 160 with a mix and match. I think it's quite good value. You've got some great advice there for advancing your fitting skills. Quite modern, quite fashion forward. It's got a nice aesthetic for me, and I won't have to do any adjustments because it's drafted at somebody who's 5'8" in those terms. And it's giving you a little bit more depth on the fitting instructions than a general pattern book would normally do. You've got the option of downloading the patterns for anybody who doesn't like tracing, so you can get those on A0 or A4, and the instructions are good and clear. And once you've adapted a block, then you will be able to use that over and over again, and you wouldn't have to keep adapting it, so you'll be able to use that countless times. And there's quite a bit of advice within it there about using different types of fabrics to get a different look as well. So the cons about it, and I think it's a big one, it is quite a limited size range, only going up to a UK size 22, which is a 45-inch bust and a 49-inch hip. It is quite limited. I do wonder whether it would be possible to make available larger sizes digitally. I can understand why they can't put a massive amount of pattern sizes within one book, because the printing costs would be too much and people just wouldn't pay it. I can understand that, but perhaps it would be possible to do that for larger sizes. My other big criticism is I do like the design aesthetic of it, but I can't see anybody older in that book. Once again, we've got another pattern book where the over 50s just aren't visible. It's time we got this to be a little bit more common. It would be nice to see somebody my age within these pattern books. I can see what they're aiming for, something modern, but you know, I'm living proof that I sew named patterns, and I'm 53, and I'm pretty sure lots of other older sewers like their aesthetic as well. So let's see us being visible. A couple of other little niggles are pattern books that are spiral bound. They are a real pain, you know, it just won't lie flat when you're trying to sew with it. I use a cookbook holder out of a kitchen to hold them flat. That's just a free tip for you. The other little niggle is with that seam allowance being hidden on page 53. I would like to see that on the patterns. I'd like to see that at the beginning of the instructions. It's just a line. I can see that they're trying to keep the clutter down, but seam allowance is quite vital, and you don't want to be flicking through to a random. If it was on page 1 or where the sizing was, that would be a lot more useful, but to be on a random page 53 in the middle of nowhere, it's just a bit annoying. So yeah, those are my little niggles, and if anybody is out there who's a pattern designer and wants to design a book for curvier sewers and over 50s, I think you might be onto something there. It's a great opportunity for somebody to produce a pattern book that gives fitting advice for everybody's body. I think Wendy Ward has done one, but I'm not sure what a size range is actually. So yes, overall, I do like the book. It's a great aesthetic, it's my aesthetic, and I will be making sure that I sew at least 6 patterns out of there to get my money's worth out of it. Favourite pattern out of it has got to be the Luovo. I've already cut the tunic out of that one. I've just got some fabric that's arrived, so that will be made up first. Probably my least favourite one is the knit one, the Eloise one. It just looked a bit strange in some of the patterns, although the one on the cover with the puff sleeves, I do quite like that version. It's just a little bit maybe too fitted for someone who's had a child many years ago, but it does look like it'll show every lump and bump, does that one. So yeah, overall I like it, and I will be sewing patterns from it. I'm just a little bit disappointed with the size range and it, and just a few little niggles, but they're not alone. It's fairly common that size range and older models don't get shown in pattern books. Right, that's it from me. Let me know below which is your favourite one and whether you'd be thinking of buying it. I've got an Amazon affiliate link down below. I might earn 50p from it, I don't know, but it's at no extra cost to you, so if you're thinking of buying it, then if you could buy it through that link, that would be fantastic. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Don't shoot the messenger. I haven't written the book. I've just bought it off my own back and I will be sewing from it in the coming months. And I'll come back and give you pattern reviews of each individual one that I've sewn to let you know how it comes up and what the fitting advice is like. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I shall speak to you later. Bye.